Every week I go inside a men's prison about 10 miles from the UrbanMission Church to facilitate restorative justice circles with men inside. The groups are 12 students, usually men who have committed major crimes like murder, attempted murder, sex crimes, gang crimes, and so on. Men who have also committed themselves to trying to do the difficult work of healing and figuring out how to be accountable inside, not just outside, for the harm that they've done. They want to understand themselves better, to make amends for what they've done, and they need facilitation to do that. They want to understand themselves better, they want to develop empathy for what they've done, and they want to change their lives so that they don't go back and do it again. They want wholeness. They want to be ready for that moment in their lives when, like 95% of all those who are incarcerated, they will be released and they'll go back to their families, their neighborhoods, and their communities. They wish that they could repair the harm that they've done. And the way they'd like to do that is by honoring the people they've harmed, to change their own lives so that they don't harm people again. It's raw, intense work, and it feels like God is in the room every time. It was through these weekly restorative justice circles that I met some of the artists that I'm working with in another program now in our church. I'd been wanting to do some kind of public forum as a way to bring together people who have done harm and people who have feelings about mass incarceration, who have experienced harm in their own lives. A place where people could come together to talk about the difficult, often complicated questions of healing and hope, of harm and shame, and where we can go as a society in kind of bringing things forward in terms of healing and hope. A place where people could come together and talk truth, hard truth, about shame and encouragement, about oppression and figuring out how to find healing in a difficult place, those sorts of questions. What about an art show? What about a place where previously incarcerated artists and those who are now out and were artists inside but who have remade their lives would come together? And that's how the Inside Out art shows began. The conversations were great, the art was great, and the kind of energy that came from that sacred conversation space was also really powerful. We also raised some money from selling artworks and note cards and so on, putting money back into the prison art program and into victim rights programs so that the men would have tools to use to do more artwork, but we would also, in our own way, support healing and hope. It's been even better since then. A lot more inside artists, a growing number of outside artists, more art venues for our art shows, and I think a growing awareness that this can be a safe place for people to come together and have conversations about one of the issues that really, really troubles our society today. There's a lot more interest in people's stories, not just stories of mass incarceration, but stories about how people deal with it and then come forward and find healing and restoration and hope out in the communities. The inside artists have become more willing to tell their stories through art. It's really fascinating. The first year, they sent art that was, I think, designed to please us outside and make us feel comfortable. The next year, they chose the theme. They wanted to choose the theme too. And the theme they chose was the distance between us. And the result was much more real and raw. So let me give you an example. This first piece by Mr. Vargas is called Unicorn, as you can see. It's something that he could easily sell on the streets of Los Angeles as street art. The second year, he painted a number of paintings that were much more truly showing his heart. And so this other painting from this year, he imagines himself in prison, one of his grandparents in the outside world in a convalescent home. And here's what he wrote, part of what he wrote in his artist bio statement. They are wondering why we are not there to take care of them. They are with strangers, as we are too. A group of men in another California prison, all of them beadwork artists, got together and sent us several contributions, one of which I'm wearing here. Their purpose in getting together is to honor their victims by what they call living amends. And so they do this intricate beadwork from patterns and plans that they have. And as they do it, they pray. They pray for the harm they've done and for the people they've harmed and for restoration. It's really beautiful. Stories like these are complicated. They invite us into the complexities of being human, which is not a simple thing. Stories about harm, obviously, and suffering. Stories about falling apart and being remade. What I would call, from a faith perspective, stories of resurrection. Stories like these are complicated. They invite us to think about what it is to be truly human, which is a complicated business. So, stories about the impact not just of harm from one person to another, but racism, violence, weapons and their impact, and how racism and violence and institutional punishment make a difference, not always for the best, in our society. As disciples, we're living into our vision of being a movement for wholeness in a fragmented world. When I was a little girl, my parents, although we were not disciples, they gave us the background to live into that vision by sharing through art and through storytelling the lives of people who were very different from us. People from other cultures, from other backgrounds, from other races, people, men and women and children who we may not have known, we may not have been neighbors with in our physical proximity, but who we came to feel great respect and dignity around. Feelings that we came to recognize as feelings of human worth and dignity that connect us all as human beings. What I got from that was a tremendous sense of curiosity, what I call today reverent curiosity, about why people are the way they are, why they do what they do, and how people find meaning and hope in their lives. You can see it in people's artwork. They don't necessarily have to say a word. Urban Mission community partners and the Urban Mission Church have a lot to offer around this kind of visual storytelling and bringing people together in sacred conversations. We're committed to people sharing stories together and having experiences together that provoke questions so that we stop having easy answers and look for the deeper truths about being human. We invite you to come to one of our art shows. We invite you to follow us online because we cover the art shows online. We invite you to make a donation to us or to buy some of our merchandise and some of the art. And we encourage you to start your own sacred conversations, maybe by using something visual and not just verbal words, as ways to promote thinking about, talking about, and then doing something about mass incarceration, about our brothers and sisters who are in prison and those outside who may have been harmed and still feel that harm from what happened to them. That's all of us in this world, every single one of us. Thank you.